the 2 decades leading up to the American Civil War, the United States was a nation grappling with internal tensions and external challenges. These years, from approximately 1840 to 1860, set the stage for a conflict that would reshape the nation. A significant event in this era was the Mexican-American War, which spanned from 1846 to 1848. It was a crucial turning point, not only because it expanded U.S. territory, but also because it intensified the contentious debate over slavery. The Mexican-American War began under the presidency of James K. Polk, who believed in manifest destiny, the idea that Americans were destined to expand across the continent. When the war concluded, the United States acquired vast territories through the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, including present-day California, Arizona, New Mexico, and more. However, this expansion raised a critical question: should these new territories permit slavery? The debate over slavery intensified as the nation expanded westward. The northern states, where slavery had been abolished or was in decline, favored the new territories remaining free. Meanwhile, the southern states, whose economies relied heavily on slave labor, pushed for the expansion of slavery into these new lands. This disagreement contributed to a growing sectional divide between North and South. Slavery was a deeply rooted institution in the South. Enslaved Africans were primarily purchased through a transatlantic slave trade network, which by the early 19th century had shifted largely to domestic trade. Treated as property, enslaved people were subjected to harsh conditions, forced labor, and denied basic human rights. Despite occasional efforts at amelioration, the cruelty of the system was apparent and undeniable. Several compromise attempts were made to stave off conflict. The Missouri Compromise of 1820 had attempted to maintain a balance between free and slave states. But in the years following the Mexican-American War, tensions reached a boiling point. The Compromise of 1820, introduced by Henry Clay, was another attempt to quell sectional conflict. This package of laws admitted California as a free state, but also enacted a stricter fugitive slave law, which angered many in the North. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 further incited tensions by allowing territories to decide the issue of slavery through popular sovereignty, essentially leaving the choice to their inhabitants. This led to violent clashes in Kansas, often referred to as Bleeding Kansas, as pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers rushed in, hoping to sway the decision. Beyond slavery, economic and political differences further fueled the divide. The northern states were rapidly industrializing, fostering a belief in a free labor economy, while the southern states remained agrarian, relying heavily on cotton and thereby on slave labor. Politically, the South sought to preserve states' rights, fearing federal intervention might threaten their way of life. Despite these deep-seated issues, voices for reconciliation persisted. Leaders like Stephen Douglas and John Crittenden made repeated efforts to negotiate peace, but these attempts ultimately failed to bridge the widening gap. By the late 1850s, it became clear that a pivotal confrontation loomed on the horizon. In conclusion, the 2 decades preceding the Civil War were marked by expansion, fierce debate, and failed compromise. The Mexican-American War had set the stage for conflict by bringing the issue of slavery to the forefront of national politics. As tensions continued to build, the nation edged ever closer to a war that would determine the fate of slavery and the future of the United States.